I need to be done.
Good morning, councillors and CEO, directors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Let's start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this wonderful place that we call home. And in our valley, that's the Iwi people, representing a human link dating back almost 60,000 years. So when we're together as a council and as a community, we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and those emerging. Welcome to our online audience and our audience here in the chambers today. If you're here today, I just draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of the screen. If you're in our chambers today, you are being recorded, and you have agreed by being here that by participating in this meeting, you consent to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published in accordance with the Council's standing orders. Thank you very much. I declare the meeting open, and to lead us in prayer today, we've got Pastor Colin Hardy. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Lord, we thank you for the privilege of being able to live in this beautiful part of the world. We think of those further north who are in the path of the cyclone. We just ask for their safety and protection. And Lord, I just thank you for all of the councillors, for Greg, for all the council staff, for the dedication and commitment they have to furthering this region that we live in. And we just pray for your guidance in all the discussions that take place today. May there be joy and may there be peace, not only today, but in the weeks ahead as in this particular season of the year. So we pray this and commit this time into your hands in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Pastor Colin. There's no absent on council business. No apologies. Condolences. We've got a couple of condolences today. I'd like to lead off with, first of all, Eric Eastman. Eric, of course, born and bred resident of Mackay, South Mackay resident all his life, married to Colleen for 62 years. Raised 4 children here in Mackay. A true gentleman and a good friend to many, many people in our community. He was in the Army Reserve for a long time, and there in the Army Reserve he had a formidable reputation. But, always a gentleman. He served in 1991 to 1994 with me on the Mackay City Council in those days, so he's an alderman for those years. He was always fair, he's always well spoken and passionate about Mackay and where he lived. So really sad to see his passing. I know Councillor Bonaventura, did you wish to say?
Yeah, probably, Your Worship. Just quickly, I'd like to add a few points. About Eric's years of service with the St Vincent de Paul. Eric served terms as the regional president, several terms as the vice president. And Eric's real estate background and knowledge of Mackay assisted the society to develop a strong connection in the Mackay community. He was instrumental in the formation of what is now called the Men's Hostel in Endeavour Street, the expansion of the McAllister Street store, and the purchase of the North Mackay site, which is used as warehousing and retail outlet. At the time of his passing, Eric was still a member of the St Jude and St Mary's conferences of the St Vincent de Paul. And look, personally, I always enjoyed my conversations with Eric. He was very knowledgeable about Mackay and the region, and as you said, a true gentleman. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. The other one sad to mark the passing at the age of 84 this week of Barry Dean. Barry's a Mackay local, born and bred, went to school at Central State, went to school, high school at Mackay State High. He started his working life as a plumber, would you believe? You wouldn't think that about Barry, but he started as a plumber, and that's where he met his future wife, Helen. She was a McLean, daughter of Tom McLean. And as soon as Tom McLean became Barry's father-in-law, he got himself interested in Royal Cruises, and that's where he stayed for most of his life. Barry was actually on as a part of the crew of the Royal ship that sailed Prince Charles around the Whitsundays when Prince Charles first visited here. So along with Tom McLean, Fitzroy McLean, and Barry Dean, of course, they became names synonymous with tourism in the Mackay region, and of course Brampton Island and Royal Cruises. After Tom retired, Barry became the managing director of Royal Cruises, and then they introduced a 45 passenger luxury vessel called Royal Endeavour, you might remember, here in Mackay. And then they also introduced a high-speed catamaran for day tours called the Spirit of Royal, which was really putting the Royal Cruises into the modern era. He was a private pilot for most of his life, and he was past president of Mackay Aero Club, past president of Mackay Tourism. I'll ask you if you're in the public gallery, you need to turn your phones off, please.
Yes, sorry.
He was instrumental in bringing the Pine Island Lighthouse back to Mackay, amongst a whole lot of other things in the community. So it's sad to mark his passing. At 84, he was a great contributor to Mackay. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So I just want to move a condolence for Neville John Parcher, who was born on the 9th of January 1957 and lost his battle with cancer on the 20th of November this year. So people that know Nev would know he has a big heart, he's a generous soul, and he's been a great stalwart for the Sarina community. Being a member of the Parents and Citizen Association, when he married Karen and they had their family, the kids went to the Sarina Primary School there, and Nev was always there, and Karen always there to help out. He's been a scout leader over many, many years as well. He's been our Chief Fire Warden for the Rural Fire Brigade at West Plain Creek for over 10 years. And he's been a valuable contributor to the Sarina Men's Shed in recent years, being the Vice President there. He's also was chairing the Shed's Extension Committee, so very, very involved in what's going on. Model Aero Club, he's been a huge contributor to the Model Aero Club over that period of time. And of course, most of his working life he spent at Ergon Energy for nearly 40 years in working his way up right through to designing and implementing electric light system, the electric system throughout the Sarina area. I'd just like to take a few minutes to read this poem that one of his co-workers, Sophie Ricks, wrote for him in memory of Nev. So in a town of Sarina, there lives a man named Nev, whose passion in life, like stars in the evening sky, still weep. Remote control planes, his first love in the air, with nimble hands, he makes them soar without a care. And Nev's heart soars, not just in the skies alone, for power lines he climbs, strong and sturdily grown. With skill and courage, he lights up the town, ensuring that electricity never lets them down. Enjoys the men's shed, with many friendships grow strong, a place like home where he truly did belong. In a company of mates, he spends his days crafting, sharing stories in that special way. With a jolly laugh that lights up the room and a smile that dispels all the shadows of gloom, Nev spreads joy to all with his heart so wide. In his presence, life troubles seem to subside. Yet beyond his hobbies and his working days, Nev trusts treasures in countless ways. In his beloved family, his heart's delight, in their embrace he finds his guiding light. In a town of Sarina, he remains a prominent man of honour, a man of acclaim, with a spirit that soars and a love so pure. Nev's story is in our hearts and will endure. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor May. Are there any other condolences? No other condolences. Thank you. Move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the 22nd of November meeting. Would somebody like to move that be adopted? Councillor Green moves. Seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. The business arising out of those minutes is published in the agenda. There's 3 responses there. There's no Merrill minutes today. Consideration of committee reports. Correspondence and officers report 11.1.1. My report is tabled. Just as a follow-up to that, the Stacked Farm representatives, the CEO and a couple of board members were in town this week, Monday and Tuesday, to follow up on our visit. And so it's quite a rapid follow-up, so we're very, very happy that they've come to Mackay to look. And hopefully, fingers crossed and everything will find the right sort of land. Hopefully this might be a huge investment for Mackay coming up. Happy to take any questions. Councillor Volunteer.
Oh, just in your key events attended, I noticed you spoke at the grand opening of Mount Tyson Holdings Proprietary Limited. What did they actually open? What was that?
That's out in the industrial estate, Paget. They had, he opened I only spoke there. Andrew Wilcox opened the facility. It's his 53rd building in the Mackay region, Gary Pill, and he's got about 8 shops, 8 sort of industrial warehouse type shops. And there was that particular opening was some people from Charters Towers. A family from Charters Towers are involved in Western Cross, and they're going to move into there. So very good.
Thank you.
Further questions? I'd like to move the reports of adoption. Is there a seconder? Councillor Green. You've spoken to it. Those in favour? Any against? CEO's report for November 23. CEO.
Thanks, Matt. So last month we held our inaugural Safety Day, which most are aware, which really does demonstrate Council's commitment to our people, which is that they are our most important asset and that no job we do should be at the sacrifice of safety. So it was great to see all elected representatives in attendance and over 450 staff as well, and an opportunity not just to tools down and put safety front of mind, but also to celebrate innovations and achievements that have happened internally within. And what was demonstrated at the Safety Day was a number of fantastic initiatives that our own staff have developed to make the work we do out in the community safer for not just them but also the community. So as I mentioned, it was our inaugural day, and I look forward to establishing that as a firm of practice for Council moving forward, so that we continue to impress that. And lastly, I did just want to highlight the continued efforts in our planning, growth and sustainability area, who almost in all cases and types for developments are well above the LGA average in Queensland. With the record being in operational work permits completed at 21 days with an average of 97 days across all local governments in Queensland, and then material change of use applications at 20 days compared to an average of 86. It's certainly an achievement that goes unnoticed, and the work conducted in that team is fantastic.
Thank you, CEO. Questions for the CEO? No questions for the CEO? Wow, okay. Must be a good report. Somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor Townsend moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Your Worship. What an exciting start to 2024 because we're offering our school leavers a diverse range of apprenticeships and traineeships for 15 new employees being offered across our council. This is a great opportunity for our youth to secure full-time employment and build a solid foundation for a career that will benefit not only themselves but also our community and the wider workforce. Council's commitment to growing a regional workforce and equipping workers with valuable skills for the years to come is evident in the recent offer of a permanent position to one of our apprentice diesel fitters on completion of his apprenticeship. This is a great outcome for Council as we get to keep our own talent in a role that is hard to fill. Our customer service team continues to deliver outstanding service to our customers and responded to just over 6,000 calls, with 79% of calls being responded to on time and a customer satisfaction rating of 97%. So that's great. So I think it's outstanding work by our team and deserves some recognition. I was one of the councillors several that attended the Disaster Ready Day on Saturday at Canelands on the 4th of November. Who would think that just a few weeks later, here we are, keeping a current watch on the cyclone. So I hope our residents who took advantage of the information packs, we handed out hundreds, possibly thousands, I don't know. But I hope that they've took the time to read that information and they're fully prepared and have taken all recommended steps to keep themselves safe in the coming days.
Thanks, Councillor Townsend. Just over 1,200 actually.
Sorry?
Just over 1,200.
There
Thanks.
you go.
Fantastic. Questions?
Thank you.
Councillor Ballard. Oh, sorry, you're speaking. Sorry. You're speaking against or for? For. Speaking for.
I had the pleasure of attending the Safety Day as well. I found it particularly good. However, I will offer a little constructive criticism. I believe that is our role, being of the age that I am and having a wife that is a audiologist, I have a demonstrable hearing deficit. Most of our staff, or a large proportion of our staff, especially outdoor staff, are of an age where they would have a similar deficit. The venue that we used is fantastic size-wise, but the acoustics of that venue were very poor. So I tend to stay at the back of things, and I spoke to a number of people. They were desperately listening. The speakers were brilliant. The only tragedy was that we didn't actually think from a safety point of view about people that may have some sort of hearing deficit. And it's probably something, to turn something that is excellent to something that is almost stratospheric, it can take something as small as that. And I just suggest that we look at that for next year, make it even better. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bauer. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. The only part of the report that I just wanted to reiterate, I guess, with the community is the building applications lodged with council. I noticed the stats there. You know, we have a housing crisis, we all know that. And we know, as you say many times, Your Worship, we have over 4,000 lots available to be built on. But in the report it shows, and it's just another indication of what's happening in our town, that November 2022, in that month, we had 56 Class 1A applications received within council, and November 2023, we are 46. That's 10 less than last year. So we have all this land, we have all these approvals, but we actually only have 46 in the month of November, 10 less than last year, actually applying to build houses on those lots, which is really disappointing. It's the world we live in, and that's all I really wanted to highlight, Your Worship.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Seymour speaking for.
Yeah, full. I also attended a disaster-ready day in the K-Lands there, and you learn information every time. And I spoke to the people at the Red Cross, and they got an app out now. Red Cross has its Ready plan, and you can enter all your personal details into it, even your dog's name, and that enter it. So, in such times that there is actually an accident or a disaster, most people have got their phone on them. So, if you get hurt, they get the phone, they can actually get all your contacts, all your next of kin, your medical history and all. So for people out there who are watching, it's easy, just go to your Red Cross app and then go to Ready Plan and then just download it from there. So worthwhile doing, and it's always something that people should know about anyway at these sort of targets anyways. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Seymour. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Angler speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Bishop. I just wanted to acknowledge the work done by the CEO and ELT in that safety area again. I thought the day was excellent. I hear what Councillor Bell is saying. I too was up the back, and at times it was a little bit difficult to hear. But aside of that, I just want to recognise the feedback that I'm hearing is that as a result of the change, well, the focus on culture and a culture of truth, the feedback I'm getting personally is that the staff believe our CEO and the executive team, and that they feel more than ever that they are able to be truthful about their experience at work and give feedback in the interests of the betterment of the organisation. So I just want to recognise the work that's been done on that, and it is actually giving good feedback.
Thanks very much, Councillor Angler. Councillor May.
Yeah, just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. First of all, the staff turnover, and if you look at the graph there on the report, you will see that for this financial year, this is the lowest staff turnover that we've had in quite some time. So that's a credit to the CEO and the team to be able to bring that percentage down, which is fantastic. I think the other thing to highlight here is the amount of work that goes into recruitment and the effort that our team put in. We see in the report we've got 46 positions were advertised with 240 applicants to sift through, and we've been able to get 28 of those positions filled, which I think is a good result. The other result that I wanted to pull out from the report, if you go to the aquatic numbers, and just the increase in aquatic numbers, which you would think in the summer months, but Serena in particular, with over 6,000 people visiting the Serena pool in the month of November, which is just fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor May. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Let's move on to organisational capability and risk. 11.2.1 is the legislative delegations. This is fairly well straightforward. Council gets the power to delegate to the Mayor and CEO. Mayoral delegations haven't changed in this, and they're not amended, so the report's not been attached to that. Are there any questions attached to this one? None? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Somebody? Councillor Asser moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor Hack?
Which is very self-explanatory.
Right, okay, it is self-explanatory. I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. And 2.2, the adoption of council policies. Council policies have been attached here, presenting to council for consideration and adoption. Policy 42 in asset management, policy 43 in enterprise risk management, policy 104 in councillor acceptable requests, policy 87, voluntary mechanism for stormwater quality management, and policy 32, coastal erosion protection works. We've had briefings on this. Are there any questions? Any questions? Would somebody like to move that we adopt those policies and rescind policy number 107, the council advisors and administrative support staff? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Councillor Jones.
I don't think it really needs much worship. Policies are a vital part of the organisation's ability to, work and run effectively, and must be bound by. So, yeah, no, all more than happy for them.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Ballard, speaking for.
I am speaking for. At the last meeting I laid the adoption of policy on the table. The reason for that was that we were actually given these policies, the policies at the last meeting at an extremely late point. And I accept that was an error, an honest error, but later on we have a notified motion. To me, policies are basically the guideline, the rule book, the recipe for the way we run this council. It provides equity across decision making. It provides a framework for decision making. Therefore, these are not something that should be rushed. These are something that should be considered. Just because an error was made in the presentation of these doesn't mean that we should make a further error by approving it without due consideration. So we waited a little bit of time, we went through it, and interestingly enough, the questions that some of us may have had were actually resolved before we actually had the briefing regarding these. So it shows that just given a bit of time to look into it, evaluate, and make a decision on it, it goes a long way. And to be honest, it's just responsible decision making. So in this particular case, I'm more than happy to vote for these policies.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. Thank you. So let's move into community services. There's nothing in community services. 11.4 is planning, growth and sustainability. 11.4.1, the facilitating development of the Mackay region policy. This is a review. I note that there is an alternative motion here, but we'll put the first motion up. Are there any questions around this? No questions? Would somebody like to move the policy review adoption? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And as you said in your lead-in, this is a review of the policy. It's a policy that we review on an annual basis to make sure that we're keeping in check with what's required within our community, because sustainable growth and encouraging development is something that we really need to have a focus on. We know in our budget considerations for this year that growth is a problem in making ends meet as far as our budgetary requirements are concerned. If we do not facilitate growth in our area, we're going to get to a point in time where the expenses of the council far outweigh the revenue that we are raising. And we do not want to get to that point, Mr. Mayor. We want to be ahead of the game. We want to be making sure that we're out there chasing the right developments that we want to occur in our region. So I think it's really great that the policies come before us. We reviewed the categories. We think we've settled upon the categories that are suitable and encouraging that development in our particular council area. The other point that I'd like to make is around if we don't do this, the what ifs if we don't do this. And if we don't do this, you'll have Rockhampton, Cairns and Townsville all have facilitating development policies. And where will the growth go? It will go to those council areas. They will bypass Mackay, just like the people say that people do with the ring road. They'll bypass Mackay and they will be investing their money in other council areas. We do not want to see that happen. It is imperative that we capture that development here in our area.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against, Councillor Ballard speaking against.
I have a different view. I think it's a great shame that this has come forward as basically an omnibus bill. There are elements of this that I agree with. There are also elements I disagree with. And I'll tell you why. Ultimately, whether our facilitating developments policy is a great thing or not, what we've developed is a bidding war. So yeah, we started it, Rockhampton are doing it, Cairns is doing it. So ultimately, we up it, they up it. Who ends up paying? It's our ratepayers, to be perfectly honest. If you look at the money we give away, and when I say give away, you can say it's not real money or whatever, but development comes at a cost to council. Council has limited ways of making money to do the things that we need to do. One is development charges, because we've got to lay sewers, we've got to lay water. The other is rates. So if we aren't taking in money for the outgoings that we've got to make to put in infrastructure, someone else has to pay. And that someone else is our ratepayers. And many of those ratepayers don't actually have the services that they're subsidising for other people. So to be perfectly honest, business will go ahead where there is an appetite for business, where there is a market. And at the moment, with our economic climate, with our cost of living crisis, it's about time we started to look after the people that are already here, rather than, grasping and grabbing for people that may come here. And an interesting thing, this idea that growth is gonna save everything. Are we, with 87,000 ratepayers, any better off than we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago with a lot less ratepayers? Brisbane City Council, are they any better off with the amount of ratepayers? They had $400 million deficit. Growth brings added costs as well. And many times that balance is not a black balance, it's a red balance. So for those reasons, I will be voting against this policy, because ultimately any money we don't take in infrastructure charges will be reflected in the rate rise that we get next year.
Thanks, Councillor Ballard. Speaker 4. Councillor Aglett.
Thank you, Worship. I hadn't prepared anything, but in response respectfully to Councillor Bella's argument, I think it's pretty well known amongst us that there's only two ways to maintain our low rates, and we've provided the lowest rates, in my opinion, in the state at 1/3 of CPI for the last 8 years in a row. I don't think there's any other regional council that could perform with this council. The only way to keep those rates down is either reduce services, of which we have done not, or at least services are at 99.9% of what they were when I came in here 8 years ago, or we increase the rate base. And so that level of low rates are unsustainable. We've done that because of COVID and because of the way people are impacted in their day-to-day living. So we've kept those rates at that low percentage, and it's difficult to maintain unless we spread our rates base. And these are very complex economic issues, but they've demonstrated their effectiveness. And we could argue that we'll be okay, and business will go where it is best for business to be. And if Townsville and Rockhampton are doing this, the best place to do business is in Townsville and Rockhampton. And so we must perform, we must encourage people to come here. Yes, it costs initially, but we are giving a developer, and sometimes mum and dad developers, mum and dad with kids, developers, building a small business, we are giving them the opportunity to do something here and then pay rates on that block of land for all of time to this council so that we can deliver better services as we move on. This is Economics 101. We reduce our services or we increase our rates base. We have 7,600 square kilometres of area. We can take more people. Even if they're coming from Melbourne, we'll accept a few of those. But if we don't build our economic base, the ability for people to do business here, then we're just going to have to start cutting our services. And while I sit at this table, I've made a promise to no services being cut while I'm here. So,
Thanks, Councillor Ingot. Speaker against, Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Worship. I suppose I want to go back to the start. Facilitating development policies are there to do just that, when there is a defined need. And back in 2014, there was a very defined need. Mackay was on its knees because the mining industry had crashed. We needed something, and we started with something that had, I think, 2 categories in it at that stage. We've extended that to 7. So let's go back a little bit. Since the adoption of the first version of this policy in December 2014, a total of 75 applications have been approved through this policy. Now, if all 75 applications were completed in accordance with the timeframes and conditions, then $12.9 million in concessions would have been realised. That is money we wouldn't have received. But we all understand that not all applications proceed. So if we guess at 50%, then the real figure is around about $6 million that we have not collected in infrastructure charges. And that $6 million, as Councillor Bella said, has to be found elsewhere at some stage. Look, this is not to say that it's all bad, councillors. We really just need to be a bit more strategic about when we support, when support is needed, and when it isn't. I believe that we have 2 areas of immediate need, and that is Schedule 7, housing diversity, and support in this area may bring forward some interesting design to reduce our housing crisis. And the second schedule, I believe, is Schedule 1, the PDA area. This area was declared several years ago, and so far there's been very slim pickings as far as a developer coming forward. So I believe we need to put a little bit more traction in that area. So there is a possibility that developers are spoiled for choice in our facilitating development policy and prefer the low-hanging fruit that we're offering reductions on. So why don't we tighten it up a bit and see what happens? Councillors, if we vote this down today, I would propose an alternate motion that allows us to adopt Schedule 1 and 7 and place a 12-month hiatus on the remaining categories, 2 to 6 inclusive. This cooling off period of 12 months would be a chance to assess the effect on applications and prove once and for all if Councillor Bella is correct in his claim that these fee waivers are not the reasons bringing development to Mackay. It's coming because they believe they are making good money out of it. If making a change results in a sudden reduction in, say, childcare centres, then we know it was the policy that brought them here. If the applications still come through the door, then this policy is not needed and simply adding to the shortfall that will ultimately bite us at some stage. I really ask you to consider voting no.
Speaker Hall. You want to speak
3
again?
minutes, yeah.
Okay, well, okay, very good.
This council was on its knees earlier on, and it wasn't as a result of poor management. It was as a result of a downturn in the coal sector and other things. It takes a decade for a government to screw something up, and it takes more than a decade to fix it after it's happened. Now, all the people on that wall there have done nothing to cause that downturn, but it happened, and this facilitating development was implemented there. But it takes more than a decade to get out of that, and we are in competition with everyone else. And when that decade's not over yet, this policy is the right policy in the right place at the right time, and will be for a few more years, and that's why I support it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Ingot. Speaker against.
Well, if Councillor England had another go, can I just reply to that?
I think you've got probably about a minute left, Councillor.
That's all I need. Just in relation to that, Councillor England, why do you think governments bring out incentives for housing, first homeowners grants, and why do you think they put a deadline on it? Because they put a deadline on it because they want you to act now. Otherwise, if you leave it on there continuously, people just stall and stall and stall. You've got to have a deadline. I believe the deadline is well and truly past for part of this policy, And we need to sort of give it a 12-month hiatus, see what happens. We review it every 12 months anyway. Why don't we give it a 12-month hiatus?
Leave it 30
Councillor,
seconds.
no, you don't. Councillor Green, speaking for.
Yes, I'd just like to touch on diversifying our economy is vitally important for the growth and sustainability of our region. If we take out major industry development, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, health, aged care, retirement living, take out Schedule 4, tourism development, take out Schedule 5, biofutures and industry development, take out Schedule 6, community facilities. Do you really want to take the risk on a 12-month hiatus at this point in time in both our economy and the way that local, national and global economics are moving? I don't think that is absolutely the way that we should be moving at all. We should be moving full steam ahead to support growth, to support sustainability of this council and our region, and therefore the ratepayers of this region.
Speaker against. We've probably got about a minute left, Councillor Bell.
Make it quick. When we talk about emerging technologies, let's think about what happened in the last few years with COVID. What kept us going? Mining and sugar. And yet what do we do there? You know, tourism left us the whole lot. And yet, if we're looking at surviving, if we're looking at new things coming here, you need to look after your base. But let's actually use the figures from the next motion to counter the thing about, more rates. We're going to do well, they'll be paying rates. If we give the 90% on those small blocks, that's $27,300. The average rates for that would be approximately, let's say it's $2,700, which is probably going to be less than that. So 10 years just to pay back what we've given. But it goes a bit deeper than that because they use services as well. And I think years ago they did a thing where basically the discretionary amount of money on everyone's rates is about, on the average rate, is about $100. So you think about how many years $100 will take to make up a nearly $30,000 discount. Because that's the way it works. Have a think about that one.
Are there other speakers? No other speakers? Do you wish to sum up?
Yes, please.
Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So let's put a few facts on the table here. In the policy, 4.3, infrastructure capacity. The trunk infrastructure requirements of the development can be accommodated by either the existing or planned trunk infrastructure based on the timing of the development. If development requires new infrastructure or brings forward requirements for the trunk infrastructure that has a cost to council, incentives may not be supported. So that is very clear in the policy that we are not subsidising. The infrastructure is in the ground and we're taking up the capacity. And it's not necessarily about bringing people in from outside of the region. We're talking about helping our own people, our own community to do development. And I think that's a very good thing. It's a very good policy for the council to have. And if you want to look back over time and you think 2014, this policy was brought in for a reason, the downturn in the mining industry, it'd be silly to think that nothing's changed in nearly a 10-year period. We have different challenges now, but the policy, reviewing it annually, enables us to tweak that and make sure that it's ready for today, implemented today, encouraging development today, not looking back in the past. That's done and dusted. We need to be focusing on the future. We need to be leading this community into sustainability, not backwards thinking of what we've got now is going to do us through and through, because that is a backward move. And we have seen some really good benefits from this policy over that nearly 9-year period, where there has been 40 actual developments delivered on the ground with a value in concessions of $4.9 million. So $4.9 million to get 40 developments on the ground, which created 800 jobs in the making, let alone the economic benefit that those businesses and that development is now giving back to our community. So I think that this is a no-brainer for me. We have to support this. We have to keep reviewing it and tweaking it, and we have to make sure that we are moving forward, focused on the future, We talk about, just before I close, we talk about tourism development. This council has spent nearly the last 8 years working on building up product, making sure our development and the tourism industry is ready. And here we are on the verge of that coming to fruition, where we see a number of emerging businesses or activities, development activities occurring, mainly around the Pioneer Valley area, where we absolutely want to see some development, could be jeopardised if this policy is not sustained. So I therefore urge all councillors to think very clearly about what they want to see in this area and support this facilitating development policy.
Thanks very much, Councillor May. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Those against? We've got 4 registered against. The motion's carried. 11.4.2 amendment to the adopted charges resolution. I note also that there's an alternative motion here. Are there questions about this? I think we've had a briefing on this as well. Would somebody like to move? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
Yeah, Your Worship, this is a similar, it's a different lever, it's a different policy lever that council can use to, again, encourage development and really look at how we can encourage, in this case, smaller lot sizes. So a bigger yield on the development that's, you know, might be being proposed. And this adopted charges really reduces the amount of infrastructure charges there for that particular development. If you do smaller lots, you're going to get a greater concession. If you do bigger lots, we're not going to subsidise that at all. But we're really trying to encourage the yield on the land that we've got, so that we can contain the urban footprint and get more value and more sustainable rating properties out of the land that we have under development. It's a good thing.
Thank you very much. Councillor May, speaker against. Councillor Bonadura, speaking against.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I won't take long. Just basically to say the very small lots are not proven in this region, and I believe they have settlement issues around them. This reduction will not guarantee cheaper lot price, because lots of price is driven by demand. And in this here, there's no maximum number of small lots in a development, and if you put too many small lots in a certain area, that could create issues. And basically, Councillor Ballard is also right. You know, like, once you reduce the infrastructure adopted charges resolution from $30,000 per lot down to $3,000, that's $27,000, or it takes a long time to get that money back. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonadura, speaker 4. Councillor Green, speaking for.
Yes, thank you. So as we all know, we're in a housing crisis, and that crisis is driven by demand, and supply is the issue. Demand is not the issue, supply is the issue. Local government has a part to play in it, but we only have a few levers available to us to pull in this space, and this is one of them, along with the facilitating development policy. So if we can do all that we can in local government to facilitate affordable and diverse housing options in our region, then we absolutely must be looking at every single option that we can to facilitate this for our people. So I absolutely support going hard on this one, and again, it can be reviewed, it can be tweaked, but right now this is the time for us to go hard.
Thank you very much. Councillor Green, speaker against. Councillor Ballard, speaking against.
A bit of a different view on this one. I, for one, am quite in favour, strongly in favour of increasing density so we stop urban sprawl. However, many times I've spoken about the idea that if there's increased density, I know this is a mix, but increased density without increased street width and things like that, we create a problem. You've got more people using that street, less room to park vehicles on private property. They park on the street. Emergency services vehicles then have trouble accessing. And I actually experienced that while living in Sydney when we put in all the traffic calming devices, and many emergency services vehicles couldn't get down those streets, and they had to go and remove them all. But let's talk about services. To say that the services are already there, as was said in the previous motion, they didn't come there via unicorns and fairy dust. They come there because someone paid. Some ratepayer contributed for those services, or some developer, previous development, contributed for those to go in the ground. And I've spoken again and again about uptake of latent capacity. Because if someone's already paid, unless you pay for your uptake on that latent capacity, comes a point where there is no more capacity and another line has to be put down. Duplication, increased sizes, pumping issues, all of those sort of things. And ultimately that will be paid for by a ratepayer at Gargett or up the valley that we were talking about that doesn't have sewage, that doesn't have water. I'm a great believer in user pay. So this is, to be honest, a small discount fine, but a 90% reduction. The figures I've already stated. You know, it would take 30 to 50 years for them to pay off. That's simple maths, that can't be argued with. What we've got to realise too, at the moment, yes, we've got a housing crisis, as some of us know, because some of us actually are hands-on with helping people that are homeless. Some of us here. And what I've got to tell you is that some of those people, not necessarily are long-term homeless, but the reason they're in the situation they are is because mortgage payments became too high and they had to get out. And cost of living has become too high. So if we add too much load on our ratepayers by giving discounts at the other end, we are creating a problem. We're actually creating the problem that we're trying to solve. And this is the thing with anything that we consider. It's not just a matter, I come from a medical background. Every drug you take or everything you do has a positive and negative. It's a matter of weighing up. Do the positives outweigh the negatives, the side effects? And I feel that it's something that we don't do enough. We look at it and say, this is a great thing. Okay, what are the side effects? The problem with the policy on developer discounts was that now Rocky and Townsville have got it. So what lever do we have to pull? It's a race to the bottom. And when they've got the same as us, where do we end up? And the loser is the ratepayer, ultimately. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ballard. Are there any other speakers? Councillor England speaking for.
Yes, thanks, Roger. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. It's by no means the doing of local government. State and federal governments are asleep at the wheel, in my personal opinion. And when nobody's doing anything, somebody has to do something. I point out to what I perceive as the success of the Woodlands development, in which there is quite small and very close to each other accommodation, with no reports of any issues in that community. I personally am currently living in a house that a family could be living in with just myself and my son, and I'm there because that's all that was available. So there's a family out there somewhere looking for a 3-bedroom, and all I need is a 2-bedroom. But you can't find a 2-bedroom to save your life around in this town at the moment. Woodlands worked. That's a great example of small and larger density. And so I believe that this policy goes further to provide that sort of accommodation in other sections of our community. And so in the absence of state and federal governments doing anything, I think this local government doing the best it can with what it's got.
Thanks, Councillor England. Other speakers, Councillor Bonaventura speaking against.
Yeah, thank you. Look, councillors, and sorry, Councillor Green says we've got to go hard. We are going hard. We have just changed from a 10% discount on lots from 450 to 459, and anything below 450 was at 25%. We have gone way over the top here. I'm proposing, and I send everybody a copy of what's in the proposal if it was to get ahead, is that we're just dropping off the 300 square metre and below lots, those little tiny lots at 90%. The 300 and above still receive a 75% discount. That's still 22,500 off the 30,000. We are going hard. So all I say is I don't believe we need that bottom category. I don't believe we need that bottom category. Thank you.
Are there other speakers? The debate It's a good debate, but it's got a little bit off track. I thought our briefing was around the end of the briefing was around trying to encourage developers to include more smaller lot sizes within their development issues. So that's the 300 square metre lot sizes. That's what the debate is around. Oh, that's what the briefing is around. Councillor May, do you want to?
I will indeed, Your Worship. So some of the points that have been raised in the debate, I'd just like to do some clarity on that. That when we talk about the road sizes within a development, that all comes down to the development design, and that can be accommodated in the development approval. If there's a number of small lots, you know, a whole street of small lots, yeah, you might need to make the street wider. So those sorts of issues, the fors and against, can be addressed in the development application stage, where that design part is essential. And we, you know, it's been mentioned before, the housing crisis. Yes, it's a housing crisis. There's one thing that causes a housing crisis, and that's the lack of supply. Lack of supply of good houses, rental units, those types of things across the region, not just in our region, across Australia. It's not just for us, but what we have at our fingertips is an ability to adjust the policy levers to help make sure we do whatever we can to increase that supply, increase the supply of houses, and the homeless start to be homed again. So I think, you know, when we look at the proposed infrastructure charging regime there, we're not doing anything for people that want to have a 550 square metre lot or larger. You're going to pay the full fee, $30,226.70. What we're doing is trying to get more bang for our buck with the same piece of land. So you can have a couple of lots in a 550 square metre development, and you're going to get a discount on your infrastructure charge. So what is it about? It's about getting houses on the ground so that we can get out of our housing crisis. The local government has a role to play here. This is our role. This is our role to play. So I would say, you know, think about what we're doing here today. Think about the policy setting that we've got in front of us, and I would say support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Those against? There's 1, 2, 3 registered as against. The motion is carried. So let's move on. 11.4.3, facilitating development of the Mackay Region policy for the Northern Beaches Bowls Club redevelopment. That's from on lots 2 and 14 to 20 Rosewood Drive at Rural View. Now this is an extensive report. Are there questions on this? Briefing on this one. No questions on this? Fairly well straightforward, the recommendations there. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves. Councillor Englert seconds. Councillor Jones.
Look, I think the report's very well written, and I'm in total support of the officer's recommendation, Your Worship, so I'm happy to put that forward to all councillors to discuss.
Thank you. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put that motion.
Yes.
Councillor May speaking for.
Yeah, look, I suppose this is a great example of policy working. Here we have a community-based organisation that is taking upon their membership base out there to actually increase the facilities that they're offering to the Northern Beaches community. And we all know around this table that the facilities at the Northern Beaches can do with some increasing. So this is a great example of how the facilitating development policy works, and we're encouraging development in the Northern Beaches, and it's being done by the Northern Beaches Bowls Club. So I fully support it.
Thanks, Councillor May. Any other speakers? I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.4.4, the DA for the material change of use for undefined use in Serena Beach Eco Village, including a variation request. Is there anything more on this? Director, is there anything more on this that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Worship. I think the report is self-explanatory. We've had briefings as well.
Yep, it's a fairly extensive report. Are there questions? Councillor Jones has a question.
Yeah, Your Worship, this is, I think I know the answer to the question, but I'll just throw it out there anyway. I guess it's really about the way in which it sits in my agenda, in that this is about a eco-development that is along a foreshore, and the very next item on our agenda is our Mackay Coast, our future CHAS. So I know that until the CHAS is in place, we can't apply the CHAS. But I just wondered whether or not any thoughts around this development had actually been considered because we have a CHAS pending. That was all.
Director?
Thank you, Worship. So this application was assessed against the current planning framework, which does include provisions to consider coastal hazards and other hazards that may apply to the site. Given the location of the site, I don't think that is so much of an issue here, given the configuration of the coastline. There were other hazards, which you'll note, bushfire in particular, that were heavily scrutinised as part of the application. So I'm comfortable that while this came before the CHAS, it doesn't conflict at all with the CHAS.
Okay, thanks, Your Worship.
Further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption for the DA 165? Councillor May. There's Councillor England. Seconds, Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Worship. Look, this is a great development, and what I want to say about this development is the consultation that the developers undertook. It's been an extensive process over a period of time to get to where we are today. So I think, like everybody's had an opportunity to ask questions and get them answered along the way, and we've seen a scaling back of what was originally proposed. So I think we've landed in a good place here. It's a compromise on both sides of the fence, and I think we've got in front of us a really good development going forward.
Councillor May, speaker against. Councillor Bella, speaking against.
I've got nothing against the development as such, but I'm standing up on a personal point of view, having had more experience than I care to have with bushfire and knowing that sort of country. This alarms me in the fact of where it is, the topography, and the fact that it's one way in and one way out. And I, for one, won't vote for anything that could lead to the death of someone down the track. And that is my concern with this.
Speaker for. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking against.
Against this. Look, I intend to vote against this. There's just too many risks with this application. In particular, it's those current fire regulations. And I note two examples, one at Seaforth recently, where the owner of a block that was approved by council struggled to be able to find a site on that reasonably large block to be able to build a house because of the fire regulations, because it was bushland on three sides, and it was a shaped block, came a little bit narrow to the front, it was difficult to find a site. The other reason, as Councillor Bella said, the one road in, one road out, I can recall sitting in these chambers early in my career where somebody wanted to extend Westlake Drive a little further along. Council said no, unless you link it right over to Track Road, which went out on the other side, because they didn't want a road that they wanted to be able to get out a safety access for fire, should there be bushfire. So those two reasons alone, I'm not willing to support this application because of the topography and what's up there. And the other one, I also do worry about the ability to treat effluent on site and the risk that the proposed treatment plant for the eco-tourism component may end up our responsibility at some stage. So I'm a no.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there other speakers? Someone? Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Look, I think that the officers, the experts that have assessed this, and we've assessed it against all of those planning overlays, and bushfire was one of them. So what we're saying is we're not going to back what our officers did and the experts in this field. We're saying we're questioning that. Well, I'm sorry, the officers are here to provide us with that advice. They have done that, they've done their assessment, and they feel that this is...
What's your point of order?
We as councillors have every right to question.
That's not a point of order, Councillor Bella. Thank
the
you.
implication that because the officers say that they're supposed to accept
You
it.
do not need to interrupt, Councillor Bella. Thank you very much.
Well, it wasn't an interruption, it was a point of order.
But there's no point of order. You know what the point of order is. There's 3 areas of points of order, that's not one of them.
And that needs to be changed.
Councillor May.
So thank you very much, Your Worship. So I'll go back to what I was saying, just to reiterate it again, that the advice from our officers, the experts that look at this, if we do not take that into consideration, if we do not believe that, well, maybe you need to have a look into that and find a different mechanism. But at the moment, that is the only mechanism that we have when we bring these reports forward to council, is that they have been assessed by the people with the expertise. not by councillors that sit around this table, but by people that have expertise in that area. So I fully support this development.
Thank you very much. I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Any against? There's 2 recorded against. Thank you. 11.4.5 the Mackay Coast Our Future Study, the Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy, or CHAS. Are there questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves.
Of course I would, Your Worship.
And hang on, I'm going to count the second first of all. Councillor Hassan seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. This has been a long time coming. I've been a part of the Coastal Council Adaptation Task Force for the last 4 years, and I know that this project started well before that. It's taken a long time. We've had the experience of alluvium, LGAQ, Department of Environment Services, so it's not just something that council has created. There's been a lot of feedback into this and a lot of preparation. So the Coastal Hazard Adaptation Study, which we're about to put on the table today, there's a couple of things that I wanted to note out of it. It's a very important document to, I guess, really tell our community what we want to do or what we think we should be looking towards the future for Mackay. And it's the future in a very, very long time away, but we need to start somewhere. Of note, there are a number of houses that can be at risk as a result of king tides across the region, and it does grow from approximately 50 to 700 under the projected 2100 climate conditions. I'd also like to state that this report also shows the adaptation responses that are identified for the short term, medium and long term of this council. I guess the critical ones that need to be mentioned, that need to be looked at more urgently, and that is certainly what this report shows, is that we will actively mitigate against some of the issues that could potentially coming forward for Harbour Beach, McEwen's Beach, Armstrong's Beach and Slade Point. So, like I said, it's been done. It's very thorough. I'm very, very pleased to see this project finally come to fruition, and I do thank the director and all of the staff, for all the work that's been done, and alluvium. And I do put this forward as our CHAS to be adopted from Mackay Regional Council. Thank you, Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against him? Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Finally got a CHAS, Councillor Jones.
Yes, we've got a CHAS.
Very good. Right, 11.5, infrastructure and operations. 11.5.1 is the lease renewal for Omeo Surf Lifesaving Club. Pretty well straightforward, isn't it? Any questions? No questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Green moves. Councillor Englert seconds. Councillor Green.
Thank you. As you said, it is very straightforward, but I'm really, really pleased that this has come and that we can potentially support the Omeo Surf Club to continue to do the valuable life-saving services that they offer to our community out in Northern Beaches. Not only that, it is a place for well-being, it is a place for connection for those that live in the Omeo village, but also to the wider community as well. I like to say that myself and my kids are living our best life when we're out there on a Friday night. It really is just what community is all about, and they foster that and they support that through their volunteers and their donations to the community. So pleased to support this report today.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 11.5.2, lease renewal for the Omeo Surf Lifesaving Club Incorporated and Sunset Bay Outrigger Canoe Racing Association Club Incorporated. Yeah, pretty well straightforward. This is the two clubs working hand in hand. Questions? No questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor Jones.
I think it's self-explanatory.
I think it is too. Thanks, Councillor Jones. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 11.5.3, the lease renewal for Mackay Riding for the Disabled Association. Once again, a well straightforward report. Any questions on that? No questions. Somebody like to move? Councillor Townsend moves. Councillor Englert seconds. Councillor Townsend.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Look, It's very straightforward, as you say, but what Mackay Writing for Disabled does is give our adults and children with disabilities an opportunity to learn and interact with each other. So I'm all for it, definitely.
Thank you. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Ballard speaking for.
This is a very valuable organisation, not just for the fact that people with disabilities get out and ride horses, sort of thing, which I think is a good thing. But I spent a professional career in treating, being associated with people with disability, and there are many, many studies that show that development, especially of children, has a lot to do with the physical height they're at. And that's one reason, if you really want to speak to a child or someone, get down to their level physically. And what Writing for the Disabled does is gives them the opportunity to be above the average person or equal height with the average person. There was a stage where a lot of people were taking people with disabilities around in what were pretty much large fold-away strollers. And while they were convenient, it actually did not allow those people to interact. They're not at eye level. They just don't have that ability to develop at the same rate as someone that is at eye level with you. And they actually found that simply by a different device and lifting them up, there was greater developmental gains made. So I actually see this as having not just a diversionary role, it also has a role in increasing the ability of a person to reach their full potential developmentally, and that includes socially as well as functionality. So I think this is a wonderful thing.
Thanks, Councillor Ballard. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 5.4, the draft Northern Beaches Community Hub Reference Group minutes of the 22nd of November. Are there questions around this one? You've got a question, Councillor Green?
Yes, just a question regarding the audit on the play space. Is that been organised? So
The question is?
has an audit been organised to follow through with Nature Play Queensland on the nature play element?
Yes, it does.
Great, thank you very much.
This is just the minutes. I don't think that there's any action by council on that.
Sorry, correct.
Okay, so moved by Councillor May, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
Yeah, Your Worship, this is the minutes, and this was the final meeting under this council office, if you like, before the elections next year. But what's really, I suppose, important about this is that continued conversations with the state agencies and the not-for-profit organisations and the community as a whole, to making sure that they're fully abreast of this development, where it's going and what stage we're at, and we're gathering their input along the way. So for the Northern Beaches Community Hub Reference Group, I think it's been an invaluable tool for council to be able to gather those members in and to consult with them and get their views on board as we've been developing this project. So this, like I said, is the final minutes for the reference group after the election, when new councillors will be appointed to that reference group.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to 11.6, which is corporate services, and 11.6.1, the strategic financial report for November 2023. Director.
Thank you, Worship. I'm pleased to present the strategic financial report for November to you. Firstly, on our operating result, we are reporting an unfavourable variance against current year-to-date budget of around $780,000. The key drivers here is that we've received lower than anticipated rates revenue due to an increase in the amount of ratepayers taking up the discount period, and also there's been an increase in anticipated cost of materials and services, largely due to completing works ahead of schedule. So this will be closely monitored for the balance of the financial year, and we do anticipate that we'll come back on track and achieve the full year forecasted budget as planned. Now to capital, we have expended $43 million this financial year on capital projects, slightly behind the year-to-date target. However, the officers are currently doing a lot of work in December budget review, and I'm pleased to report there that there is looking like little to no movement in terms of the change to the anticipated full year spend. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? You cut off lightly too, thank you. Thanks, Director. The strategic financial report, does somebody like to move? Councillor Bella moves, seconded by Councillor English. Councillor Bella.
There is a number of things to remark upon in this report. The first being, as said, we've got a lot of people taking advantage of the early payment. As I've said any number of times today, it shows just how tough people are doing it. Just that extra couple $100 every half year is extremely important to people. On the flip side of the coin, we get that money earlier, we can use it, we can invest it. Comment with regard to materials and services, and I see comment generally about, on social media or whatever, about council using contractors. One of the biggest reasons we use them is we can't get staff, just at the moment. But if you look at, we're saving money because we're not paying wages on staff. We're losing money because we're paying it out to contractors, but we are providing the services we need to provide. Where contractors can provide us with probably a positive that many staff can't is that firstly they provide us with the surge capacity. So if we need to do something and need to do it now, it's quicker to get a contractor in than to try and employ and train someone. The other thing is they provide us with specialist services. So we can get someone in and all they do is that thing that we need to do. And as I said, the biggest thing is they replace the workers that we currently can't get. Also notice, and people should note, the amount of money that will, like our assets, total assets, 4 billion. Now the problem with assets is our renewals, our depreciation, and it's different to the man on the street. I heard someone make that error. Man on the street loves depreciation because all they do is write it off and you get more tax back, if you're in a small business. But with regard to this, we've got to fund it. We must spend that money on renewal. So we've got to take it from wherever we get it, and that generally is ratepayers if we're not getting it through infrastructure charges. And the other thing is, people criticise the amount of cash we have. We need that cash to cover contingencies, to make sure that we can cover the wages of staff. But the other thing is, it is currently earning us a healthy return. Once again, any return we get from our cash is a burden off our ratepayers. It's an income other than rates. So to a certain extent, you've got to have that cash backing you. I found this report particularly good, and they're just a few of the comments I wanted to bring to everyone's attention.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. In petitions, we have an e-petition for the installation of a boom gate at the IMEO Surf Lifesaving Club car park. Does anybody have any questions around this? All we've got to do is accept it and receive it, send it on to the CEO for a report to come back to council in due course. If there's no questions, somebody like to move? Councillor Townsend moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor Townsend?
No, it's very straightforward.
Do you have a question? You want to speak to it? Okay.
Look, I really welcome this petition by the IMO Surf Lifesaving Club. There have been a number of near misses, and if anyone's been down there, particularly on the weekend when Nippers is on, there's hundreds of kids running around, and the layout is such that you need to cross the car park to access the amenities in the club. And parents can be the most vigilant that they can. You can drum it into your kids to stop, look, and listen for cars, but you know that when they're distracted, that accidents can happen. So this is the club reaching out, asking for a boom gate in that area, just in those times that there's peak use of children in particular, because we would hate to see the worst come to fruition in that space. Also, we do realise that there's a number of, I would say that there'll be a number of complexities as we work through this, but I really do hope that there's a satisfactory outcome for both the club, the community and the council.
Thanks very much, Councillor Green. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. No tenders. Consideration of notified motions. 14.1, a notified motion in the areas of interest. Councillor Bella? Happy to move? You want to move?
Yes.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Man, Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Worship. I will be brief on this again. It was here last month. And look, just as one of the presenters of this notified motion, I believe that it's essential in preventing the confusion that has reigned both in council and outside council during this term. We need to provide a clear pathway for residents' requests to enable councillors to have better insight into the subject knowledge and specific and defined areas. I also believe it'll go some way to preventing the councillor shopping and there's mixed messages being given to residents for whatever reason. And fourthly, the CEO will have the role of putting something together. And I believe this would include specific areas of responsibility and interest, which align to such things as experience, interest, etc. So, simple as that. Happy to put the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Speaker against, Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. Just right from the outset, I want to make it really clear that I'm not here to debate portfolios and whether I'm for or against them. I'm not here also to debate those points around councillor shopping, etc. What I'm here to clearly articulate to this council is that this is not our place. This is not for us to inappropriately influence the next council and how they set their framework of how they wish to run. It is asking officers to put more time and effort into something that can literally just be thrown out when the next council comes forward. Sorry. I just again ask about the intent behind this and the timing. If councillors felt that it wasn't working for this council, why bring it up at this late point in the term? And as I said, it is not for this council to influence the next council. That is for those councillors, the Mayor and the CEO in 2024.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Speaker 4. Councillor Bella.
Right, let's just clear up something. We're not telling the next council that this is what they've got to do. This is just something they can consider. All of this here was us telling the next council what they've got to do. This is not. This is giving them something else. If we have a turnover in councillors, a major turnover, new councillors will have to cope with a lot of stuff. And whomever the mayor might be might decide, oh, well, I want to run it this way. Now, it may not be in the best interests of councillor representation. I'm well versed in that situation. This just gives them something other to consider. We previously heard a councillor saying that we should go with whatever staff decide to do, and I'd question why we're here. But in this case, this motion merely asks the CEO, whom I would suggest that most of us should have a reasonable level of trust in, to come up with something to present to the new council early in their term, while they're struggling with coping with a whole lot of things, to consider. It's no different to any other thing that comes forward for us to consider. They have every right to say, hey, we like it, we'll do it. No, we don't like it, we will do something else. But it starts the conversation. And that is all it is, and despite you can jump up and down, you can say that we're making them do this and making them do that. If anyone can point to the actual line in this where I am making any poor unfortunate that gets into the next council do anything, yeah, I hope that they would do so for me because I can't find it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Speaker against. Councillor England, speaking against.
Bishop, I think it's important if you are speaking against the motion to explain yourself to people who put it down. The motion's technically different to the previous one. I believe the designers of this motion are still getting what they want. But I do agree with Councillor Bella. I spent my first term implementing the actions of the previous council. The next council will implement the decisions of this council, and if they get a second term, perhaps get an opportunity to implement their own. We are not telling the council what to do, and this has been an issue for a number of years. I look at all the chief executive officers on the wall there. I approached Craig Doyle on this matter. I approached Michael Thompson on this matter, and I approached CEO Scott Owen on this matter. And this CEO is actually implemented in a plan to address the question. And so, even though I think the debate last time this time is potentially, a bit silly in my personal opinion, the fact of the matter is that I believe now we have a CEO that's going to take on board the concerns of councillors. He's written it in the plan. And the only difference in this motion to the last one is he's not reporting back to us with that, and I'm okay with that as well. Because over the last 12 months that I've come to understand the methods of the CEO, I trust that he will put forward an opportunity to the incoming council to take note of. And it will be a poor incoming council that did not look back and take any suggestions or remarks from this council. They have every right to reject them, but it would be a poor council that didn't take our advice. So in the interests of, I believe, the councillors, the designers of this motion are getting what they want anyway, I just want to give the CEO the respect I think he deserves in developing that as part of the plan which it's already in. So,
Next, Councillor Anglett. Speaker 4. Councillor Mann speaking for.
Thank you. And I just wanted to address something that Councillor Green raised. Why bring it now? It's been brought and brought and brought right through this term. I personally have had conversations about this. We asked for areas of interest. We were asked to wait till after the corporate plan was made. We were asked to wait till after the media plan was made, or media policy was made. We have been asking and we've been given nothing. It's not about experienced councillors around this table. It's about new councillors around this table in 2024, and none of us might be here at all. So they will be actually having to find their way, and they'll be wanting the people that voted for them to be able to see what they're doing out in the community. I absolutely support this. We're not saying this is what we have to do, but we're asking for it for consideration.
Thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker against. Councillor Mann.
Yeah, speaking against, Your Worship. Look, it's to me it seems like a waste of time and effort. We're tying up council resources to do a piece of work that may never be needed. So, I think that in itself is not good business. That is not good use of our council staff and our resources. So, if anybody's confused about what their role is as a councillor, go to the local government app. It articulates it very well, what our role is and what we're supposed to do. And we are supposed to represent all of the Mackay Regional Council area across the region for whatever purpose that the community need us for in regards to the local government responsibility. And I think if you're trying to pigeonhole people into areas of interest, that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake, because it's not about having special interest in this or a special interest in that. It's about collectively as you sit around this table, collectively making the best decisions for our community. And I think that is the part that's missing out of all of this. I think leave things as they are, let the new council decide what they want to do.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker 4.
you can get that.
Okay, Councillor Bella.
In answer to Councillor May, this is probably one of the most unconsultative organisations I have ever been involved with. Our mayor deigns to speak with us once a fortnight at our catch-ups. So when is our opportunity to actually sit down and have a robust discussion around the table? When? Councillor Matters got ditched. Even Councillor Catchup gets ditched at the drop of a hat. So when do we get the opportunity? These meetings, we do not have the opportunity to actually argue points, to bring things up. It is structured to a point where it's almost useless. The idea of something like this, in whatever form the CEO brings forward, is such that it's not just interest, it's to develop specialist knowledge in an area, so that if you get a complaint about a certain thing, where you have that special knowledge, you've already dealt with any number of the same sort of thing, you know the ropes, you know where to go. It actually saves a lot of staff time. It's not about, oh, I just like this, so I'm going to do it. And as I said, and has been said a number of times, we can still, with something like this, probably address something that might be outside our area of interest or our area of expertise or whatever. But you have the opportunity of saying, hey, you know about this, do you want to take it or can you give me some advice on it? And then you get back to the resident. But it ensures that there is a regularity of information going back to our residents. And as I said, this is just about trying to give next term a little bit more structure, a little bit more opportunity for councillors to have a bit of a say about something.
Are there any further speakers? Okay, so Councillor Jones, you haven't spoken yet. You're speaking for the motion. Thank you.
Your Worship, this agenda before us right now is 450 pages, and the CEO and the staff do an amazing job in pulling this information together. The resources are used to be able to inform councillors so we can make these decisions. So I don't believe anything that gets brought forward to this council or the next term of council a waste of resources. There's only one other person around this table, that's Councillor May, with me, that has lived through divisions, portfolios, and now this term of council where there have been no areas of responsibility. 7,500 square kilometres I've travelled this term to be able to reach every part of my region. The efficiencies of councillors for and on behalf of the community is something that I need to consider. So in putting forward this motion, at the end of the day, I do hope that the CEO does consider the resources and information that's required to enable the next council of the day to be able to make an informed decision around whether or not it is efficient or not to be able to have areas of interest. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Are there other speakers? Councillor Anglin, you wish to speak the second time?
Yeah. Look, everyone's technically right and everyone's technically wrong. The point that I want to make clear is if this wasn't required, I don't believe the CEO would be wasting his time investigating and putting it in the corporate plan. So I think everyone just needs to realise that it's happening, it's going to happen, and I trust the CEO will do an excellent job on it. And whether I'm here or not, I look forward to reading in the newspaper what he does.
Thanks, Councillor Anglin. So, Councillor May, did you wish to speak a second time?
Yes, thank you very much, Worship. Look, if it's required and it's going to happen, why have we got the motion before us? That'll be my first question. And then just in response to Councillor Bella's words, who decides who the experts are? Who decides that? Because I don't know. Is there some sort of framework that we're going to be judged upon to say, right, you're the expert in X, Y, Z? The reason that the Local Government Act is written as it is to stop decisions being made outside this room. This is our avenue. This is our platform to make decisions. It's not about making decisions in the back room. It's not about having that discussion to say, oh, let's do this or let's do that. Here, open and transferable, right here in front of our community, put your hand up, make a decision. That's what it's all about. The minute we lose that, you'll have more crime and corruption complaints against this council than you can poke a stick at.
Okay, so there's no further speakers? Oh, did you want to sum up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's all based on trust. Councillor Englert is trusting the CEO to do something. This motion is just ensuring that he will do something. Without that, he has no reason to do anything at all. Come the election, there could be a new mayor. The new mayor would make a decision as to what he needs to do, and it'll go from there. But altogether, this is about building councillor capacity. When you came in, when Councillor Mann came in, Councillor Seymour, you didn't understand a lot was happening. You needed to build your capacity. And to me, this is about capacity building. It's about giving you that opportunity to start somewhere and learn your way through. It's not about corruption. I don't know where that comes from, Councillor, but it's about building capacity of an individual councillor to do their role better for this community that's out there. That's what it's about. And I urge councillors to vote for this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, those against? Motion's carried.
I'll have my name recorded against, thank you.
All against are recorded. Okay, note 14.2, notified motion on policies. Councillor Bella?
Mr. Wynn, I'd like to
You have a
move
question?
an amendment, if that's okay.
We'll get a motion up first of all.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
The reason I brought this.
So Councillor Bella, you're moving, but I haven't got a second yet. So. Seconded by Councillor Seymour. Now, Councillor Bella, you can.
The reason I brought this forward, it was sort of covered when we accepted previous policies in the agenda. It's just to get a framework about how policies are being brought forward to us. As I said, there's always a danger in, if you think something's a great thing, there are always negative consequences. No matter what you do, there are negative consequences. It's a matter of weighing those up. And the only way you can weigh them up is to consider them, research them, ask questions, figure out why the policy was there in the first place, whether it's still current. And in everything I do, there's three questions. I don't know where it came from. It's something that I've done for many, many years. So when you're going to do something, first question, what is it I'm hoping to achieve? The second question is this the best way to achieve it? And the third question is, what are the possible negative consequences or associated consequences of doing this? Now, I believe that consideration should be taken for all of our policies, but that takes time. So what I've asked is, we have our meetings once a month, and the new council will, and as you can see, I've made mention of the new council. Heaven help them to get a whole heap of new policies on a Friday and try and have them nailed down on a Wednesday. It's difficult. And I know what happened last month was an error, but this provides a structure to prevent those errors happening again. It's no big change. It just means that it ensures the policies are brought, they're discussed, considered, seen if they're fit for purpose, and then we vote. When we vote on them, we know we're voting on something that will do the job as best it possibly can. And we know that the negative consequences are far outweighed by the positive.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Councillor May, you...
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
What's your amendment?
So my amendment would be that the notified motion read that all new policies to be brought to this council for adoption, and follow on with what Councillor Bella has sent there. As we, and I don't know whether I need to speak to why that is, but that's my amendment.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment, Councillor Green? Okay, we'll debate the amendment now. Thanks.
So,
I'll accept the amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship. The reason being is that 95% of the policies that come before this council are already in existence. There's only the odd occasion where there's a new policy. And I actually encourage that briefing and that being sent out in enough time for people to have a look at. People may cast their mind back to the drug and alcohol policy, where some councillors asked for a briefing and were told, you've had plenty of time, you've had 2 weeks to ask your questions, you're not having a briefing. That was the decision of this council. So I actually encourage this, but I don't think it's necessary for all policies. Policies that have been in existence for quite some time, you should be able to review them. The changes are tracked for you to have a look at, and therefore it should be fairly simple.
Speaker against the amendment? It's Councillor Bell.
If we insert new there, we completely negate looking into the history of the policy. And to be honest, there are things that were in place. Like, we've gotten rid of plenty of policies. We got rid of one today. Why? Because things change. The policy is no longer current. This gives us the opportunity, new or old, to have a look at the policy in its own right. The drug and alcohol policy was brought forward for one or two very good reasons. it's a good thing. Anyone that talks about the drug and alcohol policy not being a good thing, I can't understand on what planet that's acceptable anymore. Every workplace pretty much has one of those. And why should we expect our staff to operate under a drug and alcohol policy when we didn't? I think we should be the leaders that we often tout ourselves to be. But as I said, the reason I am not in favour of the amendment is I believe that everything requires scrutiny. And I will use a medical analogy again. If you come to a doctor and they decide that you need a certain drug, they review all of the drugs you are currently on, all of the drugs, to see whether there is some interaction that may increase the chance of the negative consequences. That is exactly what this policy is designed to do, to review.
Speaker in favour of the amendment, Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you. Look, I don't subscribe to this is how it's always been done, this is how we should continue. It's, I'm always for continuous improvement, and that's why I really appreciate our CEO's smarter, faster, more agile vision for this council. If we take the original motion of reviewing all of these policies, it's just going to be a bureaucratic nightmare as far as I'm concerned. And it flies in the face of this vision. Absolutely support new policies. And that was, in the case of the property encroachment policy, we were given the utmost time from officers to really ensure of a very complex policy that we were across that. In the case of the, this should be a leading council in regards to drug and alcohol policy. We're not here saying that that shouldn't be there. But the process in which it was brought to this council, I'm also one of the councillors that asked for a briefing. I asked twice for a briefing, and twice I was denied the opportunity to give my feedback and discussion about something that is really critically important. And if we want to have really good decisions, we don't rush these policies through, and we don't deny councillors the opportunity to participate in these policies. So absolutely, new policies do need to have rigour and involvement of councillors. But as I said, and I think the evidence is there of what a waste of resources this can be. When Councillor Bella in the last meeting there laid on the table the policies, saying there wasn't enough time in this one, and I do agree that there was a short amount of time on this one, but it went to a briefing, and in that briefing, a number of staff had to be brought from all over council's facilities to attend that briefing. One question was asked. One question that could have been dealt with by email and circulated to all councillors, as per is the current process when we're renewing policies. So I have faith in the current system of reviewing policies. It's released before the agenda. I agree that if there's a time frame around that, that would be great. Acknowledging that there was an issue this last time, but I have the confidence and comfort to ask the CEO for further information. And if I'm not comfortable with renewing a policy, then I do have the comfort that I can ask for a briefing in that case. But I don't think that fits all cases.
Thanks, Councillor Green. So, Speaker against? You're speaking against?
Yes.
This is the amendment.
Against the amendment. Look, apart from community grants policy, all these other policies are every 3 years. And I think 3 years is a fairly long time. We're only here for 4. So we'll only see that policy once, and occasionally you might see it twice, in the first year and the last year. I think it's very important. In that 3 years, a lot happens. And it's very important that we have that time to do that, to share that policy with councillors, to listen to what's changed. And I agree, Councillor Green, there was only one question asked at that in relation to those last 3 policies. But that's important. That question was shared immediately around this room, gave everybody the chance to listen to that question. It may have raised interest in other councillors to ask another question, but that's the simplest way to do it. We're here, combined decision making with what Councillor May said around this room is what gives you those best decisions. So I believe to review something here once every 3 years is definitely not a bad thing. We need to have that briefing. It may only take a few minutes. And if there's something that gets quite in detail, we will take a little bit longer. But it is something that is important for us to do as councillors. For instance, today, the voluntary mechanism for stormwater quality that went through. You know, the policy review included an increase in the rates using the PPI. You know, that is what happens around there. Someone could have wanted to know a question on that, would wanted to know exactly what that is. So it's just a matter about giving this opportunity for all policies within our council. Don't support the amendment.
Are there any other speakers on the amendment? Speaking for, speaking against? Councillor
I don't
England.
think about that now. I'm against the amendment, yeah.
Okay, you're against the amendment?
If you were against the original motion, then I can't see how you can be for the amendment. The amendment puts an onus on the CEO, the original motion puts an onus on the CEO. If you're happy with the way things are, I don't see how you can support this amendment. The amendment changes things for the CEO. However, I have in my mind what I'm going to do in the original motion, but I'll listen to the debate before I make that public. But I don't understand the logic of, if you had in your mind to not put an onus on the CEO, by approving this amendment, you're putting an onus on the CEO. And so in that case, to go with my original view, I don't have an intention to do that at this time. The CEO's been here for 12 months and done very awesome things, and I want to give him the opportunity to do things at his pace as he sees the priority, and give him some space to do that effectively and efficiency. And so I cannot support the amendment.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones, you're speaking against the amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess the amendment is all about a word called new, and I am not in agreement with having that word included in the motion, the alternate motion, based on the fact that we have to remember that the next term of council could potentially be all new councillors. And so they have to get their heads around every one of these policies, regardless of old or new. They have to understand, and they are going to need time to be able to make sure that they're totally got the concept of what these policies are all about. So, you know, I've been a third-term councillor, and every term that I've come back in has always had 4 years of me not being in council. So I appreciate the opportunity that when we come to doing those policies again, that I haven't had anything to do with for 4 years, I now have to have a look and read and get information so that I can make an informed decision at this table. And I appreciate the opportunity for briefings of all policies, because at the end of the day, I have to make a decision, and it has to be based on the information that I can get around this table, not just on new policies.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers? Do you want to sum up then on the
Yes,
vote around the amendment?
Rochelle indeed. Thank you very much, Worship. So, as I said in my opening remarks, that the majority of the policies that come before this council are in existence. We reviewed them, they're sent out, they come with track changes. I'm not sure what else you need to have to be able to make an informed decision about that policy. If there is a new policy, absolutely, you need to have some discussion around that, even though we've seen in the past that some councillors have been denied that. But it's okay, we're moving along with the future here. So it is important that we do review new policies, absolutely. So there is time to consider those new policies within the framework that Councillor Bella has set out here. I'm totally in agreement with that. Think of the onus on the staff to have briefings for all of the policies that this council has in its books. There's quite a few. I don't know how many there is off the top of my head, but there is quite a few. So most of our briefing schedule will be about policies. Will be about reviewing policies that are already in existence, where they've come to us with track changes. We can see what they are, we can see the intent, we know exactly what's going on. So I think, you know, to lessen the workload on the staff to just do the briefings on the new policies is a great money saver for our ratepayers.
Okay, I'll put the amendment. The amendment is we insert the word new instead of all policies. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is lost. Thank you. Now we're back to the original motion. So Councillor Bella, would you like to?
Look, a lot of it's already been covered, so I'll be brief. As I said, this was to provide both time and information to councillors. To say that new policies have got to come, the only ones to be considered, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. So as Councillor Bonaventura said, at some point, all policies are new to a new councillor. All policies. So it's nonsense to suggest otherwise. But let's talk about resources. I've heard that again and again and again. Resources spent on getting something right are resources well spent. Resources saved on complete bugger-ups are no savings at all, because the fix-up will often cost more than what the resource would have cost in the first place. But I don't believe this does create any added stress on resource of council. For the simple fact, if a policy comes forward and it's the first time we've all seen it, we all shoot off our questions to the director. Now that director has got to answer Fran's question, and then might have to answer Pauline's question. And there's a double up, there's time spent. In this case, they can come to a briefing, answer the question, or if they can't answer the question, they take a list of the questions, go back, find that information, as they effectively do, and supply us with an answer. It's an efficient use of resources, and it ensures effective decision making. But more than anything, it puts a framework to ensure that, look, a rushed decision is rarely a good decision, and it's to ensure that that does not occur. And pretty much that's the crux of the whole issue.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Speaker against? Any other speakers? You speaking against? Okay, thank you very much, Councillor.
I agree in principle with the motion. There has been occasion that it's not gone as effectively or efficiently, but the reason I first voted down the previous amendment was that, again, the CEO's been here for 12 months. I want to be able to give him the room to breathe and to do what he is doing on behalf of us as we've employed him to do. So even though that there will be resources put into this, but I don't want to get into that because I want to give the CEO the opportunity to decide what resources. Now, I believe the CEO has heard loud and clear that councillors have not been happy with timings and the ability to review policy. I believe the CEO has heard that loud and clear. I want to give the CEO the opportunity to implement his operational strategy, his operational directions to his people, to implement that on our behalf as a request of him, not as a demand of him. And so, councillors, I believe that if you support this motion, even if there's only a small, deficit to his officers having to comply with this motion, that's just one of the things that they have to do in their day. Now, I want to give the CEO the opportunity to do his job, which is to direct his staff in the way that he sees fit. That's why we hired him, because he's the best person in this building to do that. And so I urge councillors not to support this motion, because you will take that away from him.
Speaker 4. Councillor Bonaventura.
Sorry, I just failed to understand Councillor Inglis' reasoning around us taking responsibility away from the CEO. I think that doesn't make sense to me, and I really don't understand that at all. I believe it is us to give direction around this room, which is what we do, to be able to ask for that, to ask for those policies to be brought to us in plenty of time and briefed, be it quickly, but briefed so as it's all around here, then there's no argument on the day and there's no laying it on the table because we have been briefed. Thank you.
Speaker against.
How many time left?
Okay. Speaker against, Councillor May.
Look, a lot of it's been said, and particularly in regards to the debate and the amendment, but look, again, I just urge people to consider what exactly are you asking for here, because there's an enormous amount of policies that this council has, and there is They are clearly articulated. They are reviewed on a cycle. They come before us. They've got track changes. They're normally sent out in plenty of time for consideration of if you've got any questions. And we take, for example, what happened at the last meeting where we laid it on the table, and as Councillor Green said before, one question. That one question could have been asked in that meeting, answered, and there would have been no resources required extra to bring a briefing, to do all of that work, to put forward a briefing when we could have answered the question in the actual meeting. So to me, this is a nonsense. It's a nonsense, and I think that we don't need this. We don't need this. What we need is to be more agile, more thinking about the resources that we're tying up within the council staff to produce this sort of briefing on a regular basis, because that's what we've been doing. I reckon you'll have one every week. There'll be briefings on policies.
Okay. Are there any other speakers? There are no other. Councillor Anglett, do you wish to speak again?
Yes, Your Worship. Look, I think we've used too many words in the whole thing. Where this is not asking the CEO to do something, it's telling him to do something. That's what the policies are. They are the Bible of this organisation. And we will put the onus on him to do things on our terms. And sometimes that's absolutely necessary. But I don't believe in an everyday operational matter, like just briefings. Like, I think he gets the message that councillors have been not happy with the way briefings have come to us. I think he gets that. I think he's got very much the capability of somehow working, our needs into his needs. And I just don't want to go down a track where every time we get upset that we didn't get what we wanted, we start telling him what to do. And so, again, this policy is telling him what to do, not asking him to do something. I prefer to ask him to do something for us.
Thanks, Councillor Anglett. Did you want to sum up, Councillor Ballard?
Just a couple of things. Firstly, our responsibility under the Act is not about, it's about responsible decision making. And if we make a bad decision, it's no get out for us as a council to say, oh, I didn't understand that. We made a bad decision, and we can be held accountable. It's as simple as that. It is responsible decision making. With all due respect, and our CEO knows that I have a vast amount of respect, it is our job to direct the CEO with regard to the strategic direction of council. This merely puts a framework, a guideline, a KPI on this. And I've heard a number of times people said, oh, we had the briefing and there was only one question. But what if there was 100 questions? What if there was 1,000 questions? A number of questions, and I would say there was only the one because we had the time. To say that we're going to have a briefing every week, how many policies do we have in here? 4 or 5? How many from the week, were from the time before? 4 or 5? 4 or 5 a time. So a briefing that might last 20 minutes, half an hour, to run through the policies that come up, policies that are new, first time to any new councillor, all right, is just good, responsible. It mandates a time period for us to have time to think about it, to decide what our questions are, and it mandates the fact that we have an opportunity as a council grouped together to ask the question, hear the response, and talk about the ramifications of the response. That's all this is. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ballard. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. 6-5. Thank you. There's no public participation. Nobody registered. Business. There is public business. Confidential reports. We've got 3 confidential reports to consider. Councillors, is there any reason to go into? There's no reason. I'll then seek the approval of those reports. 17.1, the approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events Conference Attraction Program for November 23. Would somebody like to move? Councillor May moves. Councillor Anglett seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. 17.2, the approved concessions under the Facilitating Development of the Mackay Regional Policy for November 22. Somebody like to move? Councillor Englert moves, Councillor Green seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. And the sale of land for arrears of rates. That's the report that's presented to Council under 17.3. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Bonaventura moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, directors. And as this is the last meeting of the year, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Hope you have a happy and safe holiday season. And we'll see you in January. The meeting's closed.